Just with the title of this episode, I knew I was going to suffer, and suffer I did. And listen, through the majority of the episode, I was thinking, are they good? Are they bad? What's going on? And I know that y'all told me to watch the documentary, which I will, and I started watching it, but from the very beginning, we already hear the father, the real life father, the actual man who did this to this child, just portraying her as the devil. The devil. And I was like, I watched like 1 minute of the documentary and I thought, okay, not yet. Not yet. I need to mentally prepare for this thing, which is an insane thing to say, I know, because I mean, it's just a documentary, it can't harm me, but I'm just so charged about this. And I'm so charged about this because in my last video, there were, for some reason, guys, the YouTube algorithm thought it was a good idea to promote my very woke, intersectional feminist, leftist little ass to the manosphere and to all those people. And I don't care whatever I do online in my future, in my life. I will never, ever, ever pan to the manosphere. I don't care how big they get online. I will never, ever, ever pan to them. Never, not ever. So if you're coming from that side of the internet into my video and you're coming into my comments and calling this little girl a cow, I will delete your comment. I will delete it. I mean, we can have a conversation in the comments. I would love to hear your perspectives. I would love to hear the perspective of someone who thinks that the child is the one to blame. And talk about it earnestly, to the extent that we can talk about it. But if you're coming into my comments, just insulting not even the real life person, because I think no one is demented enough to insult the real life person after she has been proved to have been a child, but to insult the character just because I need you guys to reflect with me on the argument of these people. The argument of these people is that just because the show is portraying this child from the perspective of Kristine as being evil, we are justified in believing that she's evil, and we are justified in calling her a cow. I need you to reflect on your capacity for critical thinking. I really need you to reflect on it because I don't think you have any. The show is making a point of giving you different perspectives. Is making a point of explaining how absolutely distorted from reality Kristine's perspective is, and you don't understand it. You don't understand it to such an extent that you take Kristine's side of the story. Kristine portrayed a 7-year-old child as an evil child out of a horror movie that came out the year before, The Orphan. That's how she portrayed this child, Natalia, as an evil spirit child who was lying about her age and trying to steal her man, because we hear this in this episode. Kristine portrayed this child like this and did it so well that it went that far to the point that they legally changed her age. And the show is telling you exactly how she did this. Exactly how she did this. She's giving you Kristine's perspective to explain to you how manipulative this person was, that she was capable of convincing thousands and thousands and thousands of people that this child was a 22-year-old woman. And you still don't get it? I guess I'm sorry that your education system failed you that much, that you developed zero critical thinking skills, because this is insane. I don't care how evil the show portrays the child to be. She's a child. You need to understand that if a child is having those kinds of behaviors, she needs to be helped. And she wasn't even having those kinds of behaviors. That was Kristine's skewed perspective on things. And we find out the goddamn socks. And first of all, when we were in the interrogation room and the detective was asking the girl, where did the blood come from? Did you menstruate? I was immediately jumping to conclusions. Immediately. I was immediately thinking, how did I not think that she could have been abused? How did I not think that she could have been essayed? But thankfully, it wasn't that. It was that goddamn Kristine forced her to walk around without her walker, without her shoes, as a method of punishment, of torture for this 7-year-old child not obeying her. That's why the blood was in the socks. She wasn't menstruating. Kristine just made that up to make the argument that she was an adult, a 7-year-old child. And you still have the audacity to call this child a cow, a lying cow. I need you to go away, go away from the internet and from society and like reflect on your bad doings, because this is insane. And I know that the probability that the people who live in these comments are from the US, and maybe not even that, because I mean, if you guys knew the shit that is happening in my country with young men today, I can't even. But just basically what I want to say about this before I actually go into the review of the goddamn episode, which I don't know why I keep doing these reviews, but I'm getting to a point where I will watch a documentary and I will never shut up about this, about how someone with a lot more power, with a lot more resources, with everything at her hands can literally convince a nation of people. Because I think at one point this was like nationwide news, can convince so many people that this little defenseless child is an adult woman trying to get her money and her husband. We need to talk about this because we are at a point in the world, I don't know, things where really common, normal people we assume critical thinking and empathy and normal functioning emotions and cognition are getting convinced of the most outrageous lies, to the point where this man is the president of the US and a lot of other assholes and a lot of other assholes are world leaders from the far, like, how are people getting convinced of this shit again? It's been how long? Not even a century since the last big one happened, and it's happening again. And I mean, how are we getting so manipulated by these lies and these manipulative ass people? How? Well, if there are still people believing Kristine after everything that happened, after there is proof that she was a child. And I know what you're asking. If I say that the way to go about this child, even if she was having those evil behaviors, the way to go about this child is to get a treatment, which it is, then shouldn't that be the way to go about everyone with issues? Yes. And it is. Everyone, like, they commit crimes, whatever kind of crime or abuse or neglect or whatever, receives treatment. I mean, it depends on a country. And if you're watching from a country with messed up prison systems, like privatized incarceration, it's harder to understand this kind of stuff. And I mean, in Portugal, it's not even perfect. It's okay. It's decent somewhat, but not great. But if you go to the Nordic countries, like the Slavic countries, their incarceration systems are insanely good, to where they actually are able to successfully rehabilitate a lot of their people in prison. And this is the point. Whatever kind of crime you commit, whatever kind of offense you commit, it can't just be punishment. It has to be rehabilitation. Much more for a child. A child doesn't even get punishment. A child only gets punishment, the punishment part of committing a crime, of dealing with the consequences of a crime, which is usually a balanced ratio between punishment, control, and rehabilitation. A child doesn't even get that. A child gets rehabilitation, help, and treatment, period. You have to be a teenager to get some kind of punishment or control with rehabilitation. The only people in the world that psychologists and psychiatrists haven't found a way to rehabilitate and to help are psychopaths, because no one has figured out how to teach people to have empathy and to feel remorse. Okay? Everyone else has a more or less capacity for rehabilitation. Sorry, I just went on a quick tangent, but you clearly can tell that I'm mad about this. But we need to be hopeful. We need to be hopeful about these people who have the courage to go on the internet and call a little child a cow. So if you are part of those people who feels the need to insult this kid you perceive as being evil, use your words, not insults, and try to explain your point of view. Explain to me in the comments and to everyone else in the comment section why you think the problem is the child. Let's talk about it and consider the possibility that you are wrong. because she was a child. And I know you're going to say, oh, maybe she was a psychopath. No, she wasn't. You cannot diagnose personality disorders on kids and teens because their personality is developing. Because everyone seems like a psychopath when you're 13. Which she was not. Which she was not. Well, this episode, we see baby girl Natalia find finally a somewhat decent family. I still think to a certain extent they were taking advantage of her. I think the show plays kind of the part of this new mother using Natalia's money kind of like to make sure that she stays around and she, you know, feels part of the family, feels like she's contributing to the family or something like that. Because the mother, I don't remember the woman's name, the lady who picks her up and kind of brings her home. In the beginning, she's playing Natalia's role, like she's okay, you're a 22-year-old woman, cool. She's like playing into it. So I feel like the idea of taking her money is like, okay, you are a 22-year-old woman, you can contribute your own finances, then you stay here. You know, you contribute to the house and you stay here with us. But I think there was part of it that was a little deceptive. I need to watch the documentary to truly understand what was going on, because at this point we are getting Natalia's perspective. So she is not immediately, but, you know, fast enough, she's distrustful of this woman, which is understandable because she's gone through a lot. But eventually we see that even when this lady takes her money, she does give her a walker. I think she buys her the sneakers. She takes her to the doctor. And what I thought was interesting as well was like when the police officer gave Natalia his card, like if it had been Kristine, she would have taken it away and thrown it in the trash. But the lady let her keep it. And it's getting to a point where it feels like Natalia is going to call the police. And I think that's why we see the interrogation scenes from this episode and the previous episode. And it's very clear that Natalia is a child by the way that she answers the questions. I don't know if you remember, but in the previous episode, the detective asked her why she would wrap her brother that she just supposedly offed, why she would wrap him in a blanket before burying him. And she says, so he will be warm. You can clearly tell that these are like the answers of a child. I cannot wait for the episode where they're doing the interrogation and they find out everything. And this episode was again heartbreaking because hearing Kristine say all of those things while she is in the room. And I mean, this child at this point feels like she is evil. Like she feels like she's the evil of the world. And I mean, I need you to consider what you have to do to a child to make her believe that she's evil. And I need to consider how much abuse you have to put a child through to make her think that she's evil. You know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of that time when I think this was maybe like 5 or 6 months into, I don't want to say the names because the algorithm is going to pick it up, into the what's happening to watermelon country, let's say like that. It was like 5 or 6 months into it last year, and there started being like, I think UN reports about children there as young as 5 years old saying that they would rather die. And I don't think that many people really truly understood what this means, because think of a 5-year-old child. Think of what concept of death they usually have. It's usually about like a grandparent or an older relative dying, and their concept pretty much is either they're going to heaven or they're gone forever and they'll never be back. They're going to sleep forever. This is the concept a 5-year-old child has of death. They don't understand what it truly means, and they don't understand that one day it's going to happen to them. So for a 5-year-old child to not only understand what it means, understand that it could happen to them and wish for it, you have to put them through such a huge amount of trauma that they start thinking like that they start thinking about their lives as if they didn't deserve to have them and would rather not. And this is what's happening to Natalia. She's been through so much trauma, so much abuse, so much neglect that she actually considers that she could be evil, that she could be the problem, that she has to justify herself when in a moment of anger, she hits the lady's arm because she thinks she's evil. The amount of trauma you have to put a child through for them to believe that way about themselves. Children, to a certain extent, are a little selfish because they don't really, they live in their own worlds, they are the center of their own worlds. And of course, they feel empathy for other people and they feel, bad for other people and they can put themselves in other people's shoes. But I mean, for a long time, the world revolves around them. It's why sometimes kids get jealous of younger siblings and stuff like that. When there's a new baby in the house, it's like, I'm not the priority anymore. And it's like a natural thing. But for a child, and at this point, Natalia's 10, I think, 10, 12, for a child to think that they are the cause of all evil, that they are so aware and in tune to other people's feelings and needs that they are even afraid of, lashing out and being angry at someone else is insane. The fact that people can't realize this is insane. But yeah, she finally gets something good. And I don't know if this is going to turn out completely okay. I think in real life, she was with that family for a while. So let's see. I will eventually watch the documentary and I will talk about it, of course. And honestly, at this point, I just don't feel like stopping talking about this because of the people who are still on Kristine's side. I know I look very angry and I know I'm very much against the idea of being on Kristine's side because there's no way. There's just no way. She was an abuser to a child. But I mean, if you are, I truly want to understand your perspective. I truly want to understand where you're coming from. If it's about feeling empathy for Kristine, if it's about believing what she's actually saying, if it's about identifying with her, feeling pity for her, whatever it is, explain it to me in the comments because I want to understand. I want to be able to talk to you about this and just really try to understand because I don't know what kind of messed up life you must have had or messed up values you must have been taught to believe that a child is evil because an abuser says so. But engage. Because I will engage. Unless you start shouting out insults, then I will delete your comments. Anyway, that's all I have for you today. So catch me here next week. Potentially, I will have already watched the full documentary, maybe some of the episodes, and we'll talk about it as well. And let me know in the comments if you want me to do a comparison between the documentary and the show. I'm pretty sure the show will come short, we'll not talk about everything that is important. But yeah, I'm still down to do that. I'm at this point so invested in this. I'm so invested in this, not because of what Kristine did and what the family did to that child, because it is insane. But I mean, people are capable of insane acts of cruelty. So that's not really it is a very shocking factor, but what's really making me insanely mad is the fact that after everything, I think they did news pieces on this, they did a documentary, there's a podcast, now there's a TV show, and people still don't see what happened for what happened. And it just wows me because, as I said before, we are in this period of time where, again, people are allowing themselves and putting aside their critical thinking to allow themselves to be manipulated by lies upon lies upon lies just because it feels like the most comfortable position to have. And if you want to talk about it, I guess I'll be in the comments. And yeah, I'll see you next week here again talking about the Good American Family. By the way, I posted a day later today because my period came yesterday and I woke up at 3 a.m. with the most horrible pain and I couldn't fall asleep until 3 hours later. So I barely slept and I was very tired and in pain the whole freaking day because I'm a woman.